Welcome to the deep dive.
Great to be here.
Today, we're taking a close look at someone who's definitely shaking things up, Balen Shah.
Yeah, the current mayor of Kathmandu.
Exactly.
It's a really compelling story, actually. Someone navigating outside the usual political routes.
Right, to lead a major city like that.
And capturing so much attention nationally and even internationally.
Fair, for sure.
Yeah.
And to really get to the heart of this, we've been, digging into various sources. We're leaning quite a bit on the information available about him, sort of publicly documented information.
Yeah, it gives a pretty solid base for understanding his journey, his background.
So that brings us to our mission for today's deep dive.
Which is?
To really understand who Balen Shah is, what's he actually been doing since taking office in Kathmandu.
And crucially, why are his actions generating so much buzz, so much conversation?
Mm-hmm. It's like a case study, really.
Yeah, a case study in modern urban leadership. And these sort of unconventional paths to power.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. Who is Balen Shah?
Right. Well, Balen Shah was born April 27, 1990.
Okay, so fairly young for a political leader. Early 30s now.
Yeah, relatively young. He was born in Kathmandu itself, in the Nara Devi area.
But his family origins are elsewhere.
That's right. They have roots in Mahari district, which is down in the southern plains of Nepal, the Tarai region.
Interesting connection there. And his father?
His father was an Ayurvedic practitioner, traditional medicine.
Oh, okay.
The family moved to Kathmandu because his father got assigned to a local Ayurvedic hospital there.
Got it.
Yeah.
So links to both the capital and the south. Now, what about his education? Because it's not the typical path for a politician, is it?
No, not at all. It's quite a mix. He did his higher secondary at VS Nikatan in Kathmandu.
Standard enough.
But then he went into engineering. He got a bachelor's in civil engineering from Himalayan White House International College.
Okay, civil engineering.
And he didn't stop there. He went on to get a Master of Technology, an MTech, in structural engineering.
Structural engineering.
Well,
Where from?
From Visvesvaraya Technological University, VTU, over in India.
Wow, so a really strong technical background.
Absolutely. Very rigorous technical training.
Which makes his next move, kind of surprising.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Because then comes the music.
Right. Tell us about that.
Around 2012, he becomes active in the Nepalese hip-hop scene, often called Nifop.
Nifop.
Yeah.
Okay, Nepalese hip-hop.
Yeah. And his music covers, hip-hop generally, Nifop specifically, but also includes political rap.
Ah, political themes, even back then. Maybe an early sign?
Perhaps. His first single was called Sadak Balak,
Which means?
Street Child. He came out in 2012, but apparently he wrote it way back when he was in 9th grade.
9th grade, wow.
But he really, broke through in 2013. There was this YouTube battle rap series called Raw Bars.
Oh, I think I've heard of that.
Yeah, it was pretty big. It significantly boosted his profile, especially among young people in Nepal.
So, from battle rap to
Yeah.
the mayor's office, that's quite a leap.
It really is. And he hasn't totally left music behind, has he?
No, seems like he stayed involved.
Yeah, he's been a judge on another hip-hop reality show, Nafopko Shripek.
Okay.
Though that role did stir up a bit of controversy later on, something about using a sacred crown symbol.
Right, controversies.
Yeah.
We'll definitely need to circle back to those.
Yeah.
But first, how did he make the actual jump into politics? When did he decide to run?
He announced he was running for mayor of Kathmandu in December 2021.
And how did he announce? Through the party.
No, that's the interesting part. He did it via a Facebook post.
Just on a Facebook?
Yeah. Kind of shows how social media can be used to bypass traditional structures, doesn't it? Directly reaching voters.
Absolutely. So what was his platform? What did he promise the people of Kathmandu?
He focused on some really core urban problems. Waste management was a big one.
Always a challenge in big cities.
Definitely. Also, road traffic control. Improving public service delivery.
The essentials.
Exactly. And fighting corruption, plus preserving the city's cultural heritage. Kathmandu has such a rich history.
Those are all major concerns for residents, and clearly it resonated.
It really did. Because he didn't just run, he won.
And crucially, as an independent, not affiliated with the big parties.
That's the key takeaway. He won the 2022 election with 38.6% of the vote.
Which sounds decent, but how did that stack up against the established parties?
He beat them soundly. Defeated the candidates from Nepali Congress and CPN, UML, by, get this, over 23,000 votes.
Wow. That's a significant margin.
Huge. And it made him the first independent candidate ever to win the Kathmandu mayorship.
That's genuinely historic. A real signal, maybe, that voters were looking for something different.
I think you have to see it that way. A potential shift in how people view leadership options, especially in urban areas.
So he was sworn in May 30, 2022. What has he actually done since then? What are the key initiatives?
Well, one of the first things, and quite symbolic, was starting live telecasts of the municipal council meetings.
Ah, transparency.
Exactly. First time that had been done in the city, giving people a direct view of city governance.
That sends a message. What about the practical stuff, like the waste management he campaigned on? Kathmandu struggled with that for ages.
Yeah, that was an early focus. There were efforts right away to clear the backlog of uncollected garbage that was piling up.
How did they tackle that?
Agreements were made with the Federal Ministry of Urban Development and also with private companies for collection and disposal.
Okay.
But it wasn't just the logistics. It also involved, negotiations with the local communities near the landfill sites. It's a complex.
Always more complicated than it looks from the outside. Now, another thing that's got a lot of attention is demolitions.
Oh, yes. That's been a very visible and often controversial part of his mayorship.
What kind of demolitions?
A major one was the push to uncover the Takucha River. Parts of it had been built over years ago.
Uncover a river. Why?
The stated goals were city beautification, river conservation, basically reclaiming public space and restoring the river.
Sounds ambitious. How did that go down?
It hit legal roadblocks pretty quickly. Property owners, businesses, they filed petitions against it.
Understandable if their buildings were affected.
Exactly. And the Patan High Court actually issued a temporary order stopping some of the work. It really highlights that tension between urban planning enforcement and existing property rights.
Mm-hmm.
Were there other enforcement actions like this?
Yes. He ordered the removal of police substations, little police posts, that were built on sidewalks without proper city permission.
Even police structures.
Yeah, sending a message that everyone, even government bodies, needs to follow the rules.
Okay, consistent at least.
Then there was a clash with the Civil Aviation Authority, CAN.
Over what?
Construction materials near the main airport, Tribhuvan International Airport. His office removed them, saying they lacked authorization.
And CAN didn't like that.
Not surprisingly, no. They sent a letter demanding an explanation, mentioned possible penalties. Shah then took them to court, filed a petition.
He sued the aviation authority. Well, filed a petition. But the court ultimately rejected it. So, not a win for him on that one.
It definitely paints a picture of someone not afraid of confrontation, even with powerful agencies.
Very direct, yes. And then there was the really sensitive situation with landless squatters.
Ah, settlements along riverbanks, often.
Exactly. His office issued notices for them to vacate those areas.
That's always incredibly difficult, socially and politically.
Extremely. Attempts to carry out evictions led to clashes. Residents versus municipal police, injuries reported on both sides.
Awful. Did it create political fallout?
Oh, yes. Big tensions with the federal government. Shah publicly expressed frustration with the Home Ministry, felt they weren't offering enough support.
And how did that escalate?
Well, he took a pretty drastic step. He ordered a stop to garbage collection from Singha Durbar.
That's the central government complex, isn't it?
It is. Basically using garbage collection as leverage against the federal government.
Wow. That's a bold, maybe risky tactic.
Definitely unconventional. Shows his willingness to push boundaries.
Okay, away from demolitions and disputes, what about other areas? Like education?
There was an initiative there, too. Kathmandu launched something called Textbook Free Friday in its community schools.
Textbook Free Friday, what does that entail?
The idea was to use Fridays for developing technical skills, doing extracurricular activities, moving beyond just textbook learning.
Interesting. Trying to broaden the curriculum.
Yeah, suggesting an interest in a more, maybe, skills-based or well-rounded education.
Okay. Now, we hinted at controversies earlier. Let's dive into those. His tenure hasn't been smooth sailing, has it?
No, definitely not. One major area of criticism has been the way municipal authorities have dealt with street vendors.
How so? Use of force.
That's the allegation. Human Rights Watch and others raised concerns. Videos circulated showing municipal police confronting vendors, confiscating their goods, sometimes quite forcefully.
That's tough. Street vending is often how the poorest people in cities make a living.
Precisely. Critics argue these crackdowns disproportionately harm the urban poor, especially if there aren't alternative ways for them to earn money.
Did it lead to public reaction?
Yes, there were protests. One activist held a continuous 199-hour protest.
199-hour protest?
Wow.
What was the demand?
basically urging the mayor to let vendors operate until a proper, sustainable solution or alternative space could be found.
And how did Balen Shah respond to this criticism?
He took to Facebook again, stated that his administration was simply enforcing existing laws, that these activities were technically illegal.
So, sticking to the letter of the law argument.
Initially, yes. But eventually an agreement was reached. It involved working on an alternative plan for vendors, giving out temporary permits in the meantime, and returning confiscated stuff.
So, some compromise in the end.
It seems like it. Maybe responding to public pressure, maybe finding a middle ground, even while maintaining that enforcement stance.
Okay. Another big controversy you mentioned involved the courts, right?
Yeah.
And Indian movies.
Yes, that was quite something. Mayor Shah imposed a ban on screening all Indian films in Kathmandu.
All of them. Why?
It was triggered by one specific line of dialogue in a movie called Adipurush. Something about Sita's origins.
Okay, a specific grievance then. But banning all Indian films seems like a broad reaction.
It was. And the Patan High Court stepped in fairly quickly, issuing an interim order against the ban, told the city to let the screenings resume.
So the court overruled him. How did he react?
Defiantly at first. He posted on Facebook again, basically saying he wouldn't obey the court order.
Whoa, that's challenging the judiciary directly.
Yes. He accused the government and the courts of being, influenced by India acting against Nepal's interests. Very strong words.
That's a serious accusation. What happened then?
Well, it escalated. A petition for contempt of court was filed against him in the Supreme Court.
Things were getting serious.
They were. But then, almost immediately, the very next day, he reversed course.
He did, after all that.
Yep. He allowed the screenings of Indian movies to resume. A very quick turnaround after such a public, strong stand.
Interesting pattern. Assertive action, then sometimes adjustment.
Seems to be a recurring theme in some cases.
And there's that earlier controversy, too, from his music show involvement.
Right. The Navapko Shripek show. Early in his term, there was debate about the use of an image, perceived as a sacred crown, on the show.
Cultural sensitivity issues.
Yeah, it sparked discussion about using religious or cultural symbols in entertainment. Another layer to the controversies surrounding him.
So a real mix of policy fights, legal battles, cultural debates. Yet despite all this, he's received international recognition.
He has, yes. Time magazine included him in their 100 Next list for 2023. The Emerging Leaders list.
That's pretty significant global acknowledgement.
It really is. Puts him on a world stage. It likely comes from, the whole package. The unconventional background, the independent win, the bold, sometimes controversial initiatives.
Highlights his unique profile. And didn't you mention Cannes?
Yes. More recently, May 2024, he attended the Cannes Film Festival.
Cannes. Interesting.
Yeah, it further raises his international profile. Shows engagement beyond just City Hall politics, perhaps. Connects back to his artistic side, maybe.
Possibly. So let's try and wrap this up. We have Balen Shah, structural engineer, former rapper.
Battle rapper, even.
Right, who becomes the first independent mayor of Kathmandu in a historic election.
His time in office marked by direct action on urban issues like waste and illegal structures.
But also by significant controversy, clashes with vendors, the courts, even the federal government.
And yet also garners major international recognition like the Time 100 list.
It's a really unique story we've unpacked here.
Absolutely. For me, the real aha moments are just how unlikely his path was. That mix of engineering, music, politics. It's not something you see every day.
Definitely not. And that independent win against the big parties, that was huge.
It really was. Plus his governance style, you could call it direct, action-oriented, maybe confrontational at times, but certainly noticeable.
And for you listening, we hope this deep dive has given you a pretty thorough but hopefully digestible picture of Balen Shah, this complex figure making waves in Nepal.
Yeah, and it leaves you with a really interesting thought to chew on, doesn't it?
What's that?
What does the rise of someone like Balen Shah and his way of operating actually tell us about where urban leadership might be heading, in the 21st century?
The role of non-traditional figures.
Exactly. What are the possibilities? What are the risks when you have someone with such a different background leading a major city?
What does it suggest about what voters might be looking for now, beyond just